Thanks for joining us this week for another new industry professional bringing us some wonderful words of wisdom. We're so excited to have someone here from the entertainment industry today. So, Darrian, could you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Great. Well, April, I'm so glad to be here and glad to share with all of you all. This is the most exciting. This is the highlight of my day. So I'm just glad to be with you guys. Again, my name is Darrian Mack. I am the Director of Global Marketing for animated kids series at Netflix. And so essentially my whole job is to make sure that people know about the exciting offerings that we have for kids, whether that's Pokemon, He-Man, Jurassic World. We've got a ton of things. And so my job is just to make sure that the word gets out there and people are talking about the work that we do here at Netflix. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in Baltimore. I've moved a couple places, but I am a Baltimorean at heart. And I'm a marketing professional. I've been doing marketing and digital communications for the past 15 years. 15? Yeah, past 15 years. The numbers escape me sometimes. 13 the past 15 years of doing general marketing, digital marketing, communications, YouTube strategy, and influencer marketing.
Yeah, it sounds like your job is so much fun. I mean, so could you tell us a little bit about what your daily activities look like when you wake up in the morning? What is an average day for you?
Man, I would say there's no average day, to be honest, right? Like we are covering, I could be watching trailers, to make sure that we're covering the message right for a particular series, or I could be on a shoot. I recently flew to Ludacris's house and did a whole shoot with him and his family and got a chance to kind of meet them. I could be and I spend a lot of time in meetings, right? Like working with different content executives and creators around really big shows to kind of understand what the core messages of their program and who they're trying to reach. I spend a lot of time reading and looking at data and performance and trying to understand if we're being successful in generating like conversation around our titles, like what's happening on Twitter, what's happening on YouTube, what's happening on TikTok. And so my job is really, it varies from day to day. I also lead a team. And so I'm building the team and coaching and mentoring individuals throughout my day. So it varies quite a bit.
That keeps it exciting, right?
Absolutely. Like I think what I love about this space and this industry and being sort of in a digital marketing role, although I oversee a lot of different types of marketing, is that it is always changing. Mm-hmm. It's like the wild, wild west, right? Like I graduated college before there was YouTube. And now that is like a huge part of my job. It is like my everyday, just understanding how it works. And so, it's always changing. It keeps you on your toes. You can never really rest in the knowledge that you think you have because it's always going to be something different, something new around the corner. And so that keeps me invigorated to keep going and keep learning and things like that.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And so you mentioned that you have worked in marketing for quite some time. So could you take us through your journey from high school to where you are today? Like, how did you end up at Netflix?
That's a good question. I went to school. It really starts a little bit earlier. I've always been fascinated by video production. Like I shot my first film with my little action figures on a camcorder when I was like 9 years old. And I've been fascinated by sort of video storytelling ever since. And when I was in high school, I started taking sort of classes around video production, right? I just wanted to know, how does this work? How do you make these things? And then I ended up doing really well there. And I started working at a news station and kind of understanding, journalism and those sorts of things. And ultimately I decided after high school, I was going to major in journalism because I thought I wanted to be a journalist, right? I thought I want to tell stories and cover things. And then as I went through college, the internet was, I started school, I'll be honest, I'm like 35. And so I started college when I was in 2004. And so Facebook wasn't a thing, Instagram wasn't a thing, YouTube wasn't a thing. Like these things did not exist when I was in college, but they were launching. And so I really got interested in those platforms and how they worked. And ultimately that took over my passion for journalism. And I became really just curious about all this new sort of digital stuff. And that became my passion. Like I went to school for journalism. I've never done journalism professionally, right? Like I started marketing communications at nonprofits, really small organizations, and then just kind of worked my way up. I ended up working at Frederator Studios. Well, moving a couple places and moved to New York, working at Frederator Studios, where they created like Fairly Odd Parents and Adventure Times, running their YouTube strategy. Then I went to work at Nickelodeon, where I was head of all of our sort of digital programming in our digital studio and overseeing that team. And then finally I got recruited to work at Netflix.
That's so exciting. And I love that you shared your journey with us because
Mhm.
you're exactly right. So many times what we think we want to do in high school is not what we end up doing
Right.
in real life.
Absolutely. Well, if I could add, I think one of the things that if you want to be in entertainment generally, and I think specifically in marketing or any sort of those media roles, you got to be curious. I
Mhm.
think that was one of the key things that allowed me to be successful. I was just interested in learning all different things. I learned how to do a lot. Learned everything from how to shoot videos and edit thumbnails and edit images and things of that nature on Photoshop. I mean, I started editing back when you guys aren't even going to know this, so I'm not going to go. But basically, when a physical tape to tape, you put in a VCR, you probably know what that is. But I've just been curious my entire career, and that allowed me to sort of adapt to a variety of different spaces. I've had a lot of jobs before I was at Federator and Nickelodeon, but that curiosity allowed me to be successful in my career.
Yeah, and that's so true. Curiosity is so important to any career path because
Yeah.
no matter what career path you ultimately choose to pursue, you have to
Mhm.
constantly learn and evolve.
Yeah.
So that's such a great point. And we talked about your journey,
Yeah.
and just like everyone else, I'm sure you've encountered obstacles along the way. So
Mm.
would you mind sharing with students how you've overcome obstacles that maybe you faced in your life and advice for students who will ultimately face their own obstacles?
I think the biggest, I mean, there's so many, but um, some of the big things is I used to think that I had to have a plan, that I needed to have mapped out my entire life for the next 5 to 15 years, and that I needed to follow this very particular path. And what I learned and what life teaches you is sometimes your plans don't always align with that. Sometimes opportunities come up that you weren't planning for. Sometimes you run into people who will change your life, or you'll have a mentor who will say something to you that just transforms the way that you think about yourself or what you can do. Like a lot of this is very much I stumbled into things. I was introduced to different techniques or different places, and I had to open myself up to that possibility, as opposed to telling people, no, I'm not going to do that because that doesn't fit into my plan. I had to say, okay, you know what, I'm willing to take that, or try that or experiment with that. And I think the other challenge that you will, I guarantee everybody will run into, is you will fail,
Mhm.
right? I've been I've been let go from jobs because I wasn't the right fit. Like and we don't talk about that a lot, but like that's a very real possibility. You can go into a job, you think you have, you're the right fit and you've done all the things you need to do, and then you get there and it's like this wasn't the right fit. These weren't the best. This wasn't the environment I thought I was going to be in, and then that impacts your work and recovering from that, right? Like you can recover from that, and where I am today as a result of many failures, right? Like getting comfortable with the idea, like I'm going to try something, it might not work, but I'm going to keep doing it. And so those would be some of the challenges. I hope that answered the question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. We have to get comfortable with failure because that's how we learn. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. So, my next question for you, and I love asking industry professionals that, is all throughout your journey, chances are you've discovered careers that maybe you didn't know existed when you were in
Yeah.
high school. And I think a lot of the high school students that might be watching may not be aware of all of the opportunities that are
Yeah.
available in this world. So, could you share with us some careers that you've discovered along the way that maybe high school students aren't aware are out there?
That's a really good question. I mean, I would say that I know a lot of you guys are familiar with like all these social platforms, right? You're familiar with the influencers like TikTok. You're familiar with the people who are on in front of the camera building these massive followings. There's another side to that for big companies and brands, right? And so I spent a number of years before even I was at Nickelodeon as a YouTube strategist, which means I have 6 YouTube certifications. I understand how rights management and right ownership, like how do you protect something you've created. Like I had to learn how to do that, and I didn't know it was a career. I didn't know that was like a job that you could have. Other jobs, when you're looking at sort of media and entertainment, like folks who strategize around events or people who do research, like there are tons of teams dedicated to understanding how people use these platforms, right? Like we have whole teams of folks who are just dedicated to why are you clicking on a particular title, or why are you watching a particular show, that do that research and really help inform and help us make content that's better, or content that really appeals to you guys. I would say I didn't know how important talent recruitment was, like finding different talent. I learned about, when you think about a film, in instance, there's thousands of people who obsess over every small detail on the screen, like the continuity experts, they call them, who make sure that when you shoot one scene, that it is consistent the next time you see that character, right? Like their whole job is to make sure that there's a consistent of approach and lighting and all of that, those sorts of things. I could go on and on. There's so many, the graphic designers, I didn't know where they're dedicated feels like. So there's just a lot of different careers within sort of media and entertainment that I've come across. There are people who, beyond just writing scripts, but people who translate to different languages, right? Like there's a whole bunch we have entire teams that do that, right? So the world is really, really wide, in addition to like app designers and people who design apps for your phone. And our company is a technology company, so we have a ton of engineers who are constantly thinking about the best way to make your digital experience, or how you're using your cell phone, better. And I hope that helps. There's a lot of things.
That is so interesting. I mean, I feel like I've learned so much just in this few minutes that we've been talking, because you're exactly right. Unless you're in the industry every day and seeing these different careers on a regular basis, a lot of people aren't aware that that experience that you get from watching Netflix is built by thousands of people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thousands and thousands of people that are dedicated to just every facet of the service. We really look at ourselves as a full service where you can experience joy. Mm-hmm. And there are lots of people that are dedicated to that mission.
That's so cool. So could you tell us a little bit about, as you were going through your journey, I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons, but what is something that you wish you would have learned at a younger age?
That is a great question. Something I wish I would have learned at a younger age. I think just being yourself. I think one of the things that I'll be, one of the challenges I can go back to is being a person of color in this space and in this industry. I felt for a very long time I just needed to prove that I was good enough, or I needed to prove that I offered value to these rooms and spaces in which I occupy. Like I was obsessed with the idea of constantly proving myself, and I wish I had been told I didn't need to do that so much, that I could just rest, not constantly worry about what people think, and just really rest in the idea that my experiences, what I bring to the table, how I grew up, what school I went to, what I learned is valuable by itself. And that you don't have to try harder, just bring all of who you are to the table and you'll be fine. And I think that is a lesson I wish I had earlier.
That is such good advice. And it's something that we all need to hear. And once you can learn that younger and younger, I think it will definitely help you to be more successful. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I have one more question for you, and then we have a few questions from students. My last question is, if there's students that are out there watching and they're interested in pursuing a career in marketing, what is something that they can do today while they're still in high school to really get them started on that career path?
I think there are a couple of things. One, I would say YouTube is a great resource, right? Not only is it great for entertainment, it's just a great learning platform, right? And so there are so many different ways that you can get into the industry, whether it's making video content, whether it's making images or graphic design, whether it's doing research, whether it's, obviously everybody wants to be in front of the camera, but there are a lot more people behind it when you're looking at marketing. So if you're interested in that space, I would just go on YouTube and just kind of find your what you are most passionate about, right? Like there's so many different ways to reach an audience, and you can build a YouTube channel, or you can start a TikTok, you can go on Instagram. We all have these platforms, and then really pay attention to the analytics, right? Like open those platforms up and look at how your posts are doing. That's marketing, right? It's understanding how to reach your audience. And so you can do that with what's in your pocket right now, and start learning sort of the best ways that people respond to some of the things that you're doing. And that'll start you on a path towards a career in marketing.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's so true. And there's no reason that students have to wait until they graduate. You can definitely get started today. So great advice. Okay. So the first question that we have from students is, what is your favorite Netflix series?
Oh, that's always a really good question, man. It's also tough because there are so many. I will say one of my favorites is Voltron, the Legendary Defenders. It's an animated show. Obviously, I love animation. And that's going back to like being your full self. Like I am a geek. I love animation. I love comic books. I love video games. I still do those things and play those things. And I use them in my work every single day. So you don't have to, like, just because you get older, throw away things that you're already passionate about. Just lean into them. So going back to the question, my favorite show on Netflix has been Voltron, the Legendary Defender. Another show that I really loved, The Crown. I mean, I love her British accent, so it's hard not to watch that show. But there's so many. But Voltron, the Legendary Defender is my favorite.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you made the point that whatever it is that you're passionate about, you can bring that to the table. You want to have a career that you enjoy. So why not merge those two things? Yeah. So the next question is a little bit more serious. It says, I'm interested in marketing, but I'm not creative. Is there a place for me in this career path?
I'm not that creative either, right? I think what's great about marketing is at least at a place like Netflix, is we hire agencies to do a lot of creative work, like come up with interesting campaigns and things of that nature. Like my job at the end of the day is to understand who is this piece of content for, and then say, like, or who is the show for? Who is the person that's going to watch this? And then my job is to figure out, to bring the pieces together that are going to communicate that message. And often that's not me coming up with the key art or the look or the color palette and things of that nature. Those are other folks. My job is to say, does this match with what I think the end audience is going to be? So there are a ton of careers in marketing that don't require you to be like the person coming up with the catchy tag phrases or catch lines or the beautiful video. In fact, most of us are really in the weeds and understanding who we're trying to reach, why we want to reach them, what we expect people to get out of watching this. You don't need to be creative for that. You just need to really just talk to people and have conversations.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of research and analyzing different points of data and things like that. So.
Absolutely.
Very cool. My next question is, what type of personality would be the best fit for a career in marketing?
Oh man, I would say marketing today, you should be flexible, right? Like you should really be, because I can tell you it's changed a lot. Even in the short time that I've been in the space, I have had a lot of different jobs. I've done everything from email marketing to video production to, graphic design, I've done event, I managed events, I've done community outreach, I've done audience development. Like, we've been talking about research all day. I did tons and tons of research. I've been on camera, right? Like I've been in front of the camera. I've had to sell products. I've written scripts. I've produced shows. So I think to really be in the space, really be flexible and be open to new experiences and open to learning different things. One of the things I did is I took a app development class just because I wanted to understand how to code a application for a phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was terrible at it. Awful. It was the worst class I'd ever taken. JavaScript is a programming language that is really hard to at least for me, it was really hard to understand. But I ended up leading development of a product at work. And the knowledge, even though I was terrible at it, I knew the language. And so part of this is just learning the language of the industry and different people's professions so you can communicate what you actually need and they can understand it and build the thing. So that would be my advice there for the type of person you need to be in this space.
Yes, I think that's so important. And just being flexible and open and willing to continue learning, I think is key for sure. So the last question that I have from you or for you from students is marketing for a TV show or series different from marketing a product to be sold to consumers?
Wow, these are some good questions. I'm really impressed with this class or this group of kids or high school students, as I should call you guys, because you are young adults. I would say yes. In some ways it's different. In some ways it's the same. In the way that it's the same, at the end of the day, my boss's boss, Bosma St. John, incredible leader. She's talked a lot about like marketing is the art of making people feel something. That is what our job is. Our job is to, when you look at a TV show or you look at a product or you look at an image or whatever it is, we want you to feel something very specific, whether that's joy, whether that's excitement, whether it's anxious. Maybe we want if it's a scary movie, we want you to be scared. So there's all of these different emotions that we want to be able to communicate, because more than words and more than language, it's like you remember a feeling, how you felt about something, more than what they said or how it was presented. And so in that sense, it's all the same. Tactically, how you position a TV show is a little bit different than how you market a product, right? Like a product should have very specific utility. There's when I say utility, like very specific uses. If I buy, I wear a Puma hat. If I buy this hat, I want to be comfortable on my head. I want to communicate that idea to you as a consumer of a product. But if I'm trying to communicate to you a show, right, I really want you to think about like, what is this emotionally going to do? How are you going to feel after you watch it? That do you feel joy after you watch this? Or do you want to watch more of it? Like, how do we talk about the characters? Like, character becomes really important. Story, like origin. So you've got to pull together a lot of different ideas in a way that people will be excited to spend time with something. And versus a product where you're spending money, which has a specific sort of value. In what I do, I'm trying to ask you to invest time with me. And so I have to talk to you about that a little bit differently. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really great insight into, even though maybe the concepts and the strategies might be similar, but the products ultimately are different in the end. I think there's a lot of correlation there. So I think that was a great explanation. So I have so much enjoyed chatting with you today. Is there any last words of wisdom you want to leave with students?
Oh, there's so many things, but I'll stick with this. Um, you're never too young to like learn something new. And I think one of the keys is really think about what's coming. Like, what's the future? Where do you think people are going to, how they're going to be using their phones, or how they're going to be traveling, how they're going to be um, uh, thinking about the world, like what the environment is going to look like. And I would say you want to think about what's happening in those trends, because there's a job there, right? There's probably a job in it. You know, years ago, putting solar panels on people's house was not a thing, but the people who were first, who understood how to leverage out alternative energy, right? Like, they're now the folks who are leading and commanding that space. So I would encourage you to think about what's coming and where those opportunities are, because I guarantee you there's probably a job in it.
Yes. Oh, what a perfect note to end on. I think that's great advice. You have been wonderful. You've shared so much insight and advice with us. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone that has tuned in. Be sure and check back to see who our next guest will be. You guys have a great week.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, April.